Investment committee meetings are a great place for plan sponsors to discuss the latest trends in defined contribution plans, from investments to plan design to communications and education. And joining me now is Cammack Retirement Group consultant Jennifer Stevens. Jen, thanks for joining us on the show today. Communication education we talked about, that's a staple of any retirement committee conversation. Trends that you're seeing in terms of benchmarking perhaps, or data mining in that particular area?
Yeah, so a couple things. So number one, when we're talking about communication and education, vastly you're talking about participants who are not in the finance world. So you have to be thinking about that as a plan sponsor as you create your communication and education plan with your record keeper. What we find is most effective is easy. So easy to understand and easy to execute. And we know from from all sorts of studies in behavioral finance that inertia and procrastination are very important factors. We also know that participants make poor choices because they tend to act emotionally versus rationally. So the third component of a good communication and education plan is to really provide some type of roadmap or guidance in some way. So for instance, if we're talking about an enrollment, the first question that you need to know as a record keeper is how much are you trying to defer? And if you open-endedly ask that, how much would you like to save, most participants are going to get overwhelmed. There's too many choices, there's too much information, I don't know. But if you give them choices, for instance, do you want to save 8, 10, or 12% or other? They're going to pick one of those, and actually in most cases they pick 8 in that scenario, which sort of actually leads to another kind of sidebar conversation, something called anchoring. So most participants pick that lower number. The reason they pick it is because you've given them a selection where the other ones look relatively higher. So that same participant that picks 8, if they were given 4, 6, and 8%, would have picked 4. So as a committee, as you're going through this and you're working with your record keeper to set up your communication education in terms of in this case, the enrollment, you want to be talking about which numbers will scare your employees off versus which ones will actually promote a healthier savings rate. So that's one sort of section of it. As we're talking about communication and education, there's a lot of other things to consider. You want to make sure that you're utilizing your record keeper's abilities as much as you can, because every record keeper, almost every record keeper, has a campaign. They're sending out automatic, maybe 2 or 3 times a quarter. It really depends on, sometimes it's special occasions like your anniversary or your birthday or something. They're sending things out automatically. But as a plan sponsor, you can really leverage more than that. You can ask them if they can target certain populations, and they almost all can. So for instance, if you have a group of people who are eligible for your match and not receiving the full match, on the investment side, if you have a group of a population that is invested all in one asset class, you can target those populations and send out a communication to them. And again, you want it to be easy to understand and easy to execute. So something like, you're not receiving your full match, this is what you need to do. If you want to receive your full match, click here to do it. So those are the things that you should be doing as a plan sponsor or as a fiduciary to really educate clearly to your population.
I think you touched on this, but I mean, it is about, in the financial services industry, we have a habit of focusing on using a lot of jargon. And I think that is a detriment to the communications and education strategy. I mean, it doesn't have to be overly complex. What we're communicating is basically start contributing early, contributing as much as you can, and you're going to be in a better path. And diversifying, you'll be in a better path. And I think we often get caught up in making it much more complicated than it needs to be.
Simpler is better.
Simple and elegant is better.
Yes.
Last question around data mining. You mentioned talking with record keepers, working with the record keepers. How important is it to get data on a regular basis, put it in front of the committee, and talk about the impact that a C&E program is having, communication education program is having, or what plan design is having as an impact? How critical is it to be able to get that data set from a client and to kind of analyze it, or from a record keeper, and to analyze it for a client?
It's very important, and the reason is because when we're making these changes with our plan sponsors, we want them to know if it's working. If it's not, we need to reroute, because the whole goal here, as this committee is meeting, is to make sure that their participants are ready for retirement. So if some route that we're taking on the communication and education or plan design route is not working, we want to make sure that we document that, or if it is working, we want to continue and further that education. So one of my clients actually, 2008, went to an auto enrollment situation. A couple years ago, they implemented an auto escalate feature, and since then, participation, contribution rates, and average account balances have all gone up drastically. So we're bringing that to them once a year usually, and talking about, this is working, good job, because committees also want to know that what they're doing is making a difference, and so do we as advisors.
Absolutely. Jen Stevens, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.